Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the First Tuesday Club. It's great to have a good number on this morning and a few new faces, so that's always good. So what are we going to be talking about today is hybrid working, what's working and what's not working. A wee bit about me. My name's Jacqueline Watson. I'm a partner here at Henderson Logie, and I head up our marketing and business development team. And I also work alongside David Smith, our managing partner, who's on the call today, who heads up our consulting team as well. And we've got a few of my colleagues on, so you might get to meet them in our Zoom breakout session as well. So if you're new to the First Tuesday Club, we're an online networking group. We started during the pandemic, actually, and we're still going strong. A few of you will remember those days. But our kind of purpose is just to help participants to learn, grow and network. We just have a friendly, relaxed vibe, and we just really hope that over the next 50 minutes you take away one or two things back that you can take back to your business, really. So use the chat function. I know people are already, so that's good. If you want to say who you are, your business, you want to share your LinkedIn details, all of those good things, share away. Also, if you've got any like book, podcast recommendations, other research you've seen about the topic, then put that into the chat function as well, because it's always just good to share and help people learn from other resources as well. But on to the main event. So it's great to have the founder and CEO of the HR booth, Alistair Booth, with us this morning. So it's great to have Ali with us. And for those of you who've been to the First Tuesday Club before, it's worth noting that I don't let speakers see what I say about them in advance. So this is all new to Ali, what I'm about to say, because I do my research. I've known Ali for a few years, but I do my research about speakers in advance. So if I get anything wrong, you can correct me. But a wee bit about Ali. He began his HR career in 1993, so now has over 2 decades worth of HR experience. He's worked for a range of organisations, including telecommunications, outsourcing, contact centres, defence, wholesale and retail. But in 2012, he set up the HR booth, and he now provides HR outsource solutions with his team to SMEs across Scotland. And I know from speaking to Ali, he's also branched into England over the last few years as well. I also know that the HR booth won a Career Business Award in 2021, and they were up against pretty stiff competition. But what made them stand out was that although they do great things with clients, they actually do invest in their own staff as well. So they kind of practice what they preach. And also a lot of HR professionals talk about corporate social responsibility, ESG, doing all those good things, but actually they do a lot of good things themselves at the HR booth. Ali goes out to schools, he develops the next generation for their HR career advice. And again, they just practice what they preach, and they give a lot back to the community. They've provided like hundreds of textbooks to disadvantaged kids, meals to kids in India. They support local football teams doing fundraising, food banks at Christmas time, toys at Christmas time to disadvantaged kids. So I just think that's really worth mentioning, because as a team, they give a lot back to the community. So I thought that was worth mentioning this morning. So hopefully I've got all of that correct. But over to you, Ali.
Thanks very much, Jacqueline. I think you've been stalking me online with that research there. So thanks very much. And thanks once again for the opportunity to speak to the First Tuesday Club this morning. So I'll just share my screen, actually, if that's okay. Everybody see the screen okay?
Yep, we can see that.
Perfect. So thanks again, Jacqueline, for the introduction. So as Jacqueline said, I'm the founder of the HR booth. We support a number of businesses across the UK with their HR requirements. And I suppose over the last couple of years, some of that advice has kind of changed a little bit in terms of giving advice around hybrid working and the kind of various models around that. So what I wanted to do this morning was really just spend some time on, I suppose, our insights into kind of hybrid working, what's working and perhaps what's not working, and then just some of the do's and don'ts. Now, unfortunately, there isn't going to be any kind of silver bullet that I can give you today that will kind of absolutely work for your own business. What we have kind of seen over the last couple of years is, what works for one business might not work for another. And we've also had some challenges in that and our own business as well over the last couple of years. So happy to kind of share some of that as well. But yeah, there probably isn't one size fits all, and that will be something that will come out through today's session, hopefully. So, as I said, purpose is to explore the do's and don'ts of hybrid working and identify what's working and what isn't. So, suppose, if you touched on there, Jacqueline, around the pandemic and the First Tuesday Club kind of being formed. I suppose kind of home working to a certain extent was kind of forced on businesses when we went into lockdown during the pandemic. And then with the easing of kind of restrictions over that period of time, businesses and employees have had to kind of wrestle with, what is hybrid working. We're now kind of 3 years down the line since we went into the pandemic, and most businesses now have a kind of hybrid working model of sorts. And so what I wanted to do was actually just kind of find a definition around what is actually hybrid working, because I suppose there's differences between flexible working, there's differences between hybrid working. So today we're really speaking about hybrid working. And what I kind of found around a definition is that it's a blend of remote and in-person work arrangements that provides flexibility to the employees and to the business. So that's kind of the definition I've kind of come up with around hybrid working. But there's lots of research on this topic and lots of kind of case studies on it as well. So yeah, but two different things: hybrid working and flexible working. So today we're focusing on hybrid working. Oh, my screen has froze on me there, actually, Jacqueline. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so there's, one of the things is that there's obviously a lot of benefits around hybrid working. Some of that includes things like, increased productivity. There's probably improved work-life balance for employees, and that includes kind of reduced kind of commuting times as well. But there's also a kind of whole range of challenges that we've found. So that includes things like, big communication gaps in businesses. There's potential feelings of isolation where people are kind of working remotely. And it's quite difficult to try and build a good kind of culture when you've not got people in the office. So that's been something that's a bit of a challenge for businesses as well. And I suppose for hybrid working to be a success, there needs to be kind of clear guidelines and effective communication strategies for it to work. So that's kind of some of the things that businesses are kind of up against. I don't want to really do PowerPoint around lots of different stats on it, but I thought one of the things that Jacqueline and I were speaking about beforehand was just it is quite good just to see some of the statistics around hybrid working. So I've got a couple of kind of slides on that I just want to share just to give some kind of context around hybrid working. So some of the stats that I've kind of found, just having a look at that. Different kind of trends, but we've got an organisation called OnePoll that have done a survey across the UK, and what they have seen is an increase in people working kind of remotely. Also kind of found as well that people have 40% of businesses have moved to a kind of hybrid model since the pandemic. And there's also been a 10% increase in companies opting for kind of more flexible kind of working arrangements since the pandemic. Fully remote work still is fairly uncommon, but that has increased slightly. So I guess there are some businesses that can do fully remote. I suppose if you're perhaps in things like the IT sector, for example, it's perhaps a little bit more easier to kind of do some of that work fully remote rather than kind of being in an office. But yeah, that's just kind of some stats around kind of hybrid working that we've been able to kind of find in relation to the pandemic and hybrid working. And this was obviously, again, a previous First Tuesday Club speaker as well. So organisation called Flexwork, which is focusing more on the Scottish population. but you can see there has been an increase in Scottish adults working flexibly. And that has kind of increased as well. Interestingly as well, though, that 70% of Scottish employers think flexibility will increase in the next 12 months, but there are some that think it will reduce. So that's our take a little bit as well. We have seen some clients actually reduce the flexibility, and I'll get into some of that later on, as they have kind of found some challenges in their business just around the hybrid working model not really working for them. So they're looking to kind of reduce some of that in the future. So that's kind of some stats, and we can discuss a little bit more about that in the breakout rooms kind of later on. And the slides will be available. So as I say, I'm not going to spend a great deal of time going over each of the different bullet points we've got here. I'd like to spend a few moments just to look that over. So yeah, you can see some things jumping out right away from a colleague perspective, that disconnected from the team, can't interact as much face to face, too many distractions at home, etc., and kind of poor IT setup at home, and then communication kind of decreasing. So that's obviously something that is hugely topical. So some of the things I kind of wanted to speak about today, just on kind of hybrid working, our kind of experience on it. As obviously making sure you have got kind of clear expectations around what is hybrid working, and that really just kind of means things like when do you expect people to be in the office, what does that look like for your business, and what I suppose is the purpose for them being in the office, and what's the purpose for them kind of working from home, or if you can allow it working from anywhere. And we know that potentially brings other challenges around data security, general kind of data protection, if there's paper-based files, for example. So if you've got people working in a local Starbucks, for example, or in an apartment somewhere abroad, what does that mean from a data point of view? So you need to kind of have a look at the different expectations around that. But the big thing that jumps out is communication, and how you communicate effectively with your team. So I know for us and hybrid working, and obviously today we're on Zoom. So Zoom's a good platform to maintain good communication with remote workers. In our own business, we use Microsoft Teams, but I know some businesses are using things like kind of Slack and other kind of platforms such as that, just to make sure that communication is still there. So I suppose you need to kind of find a communication platform that works for you, and it's probably even more difficult to communicate with teams working remotely. So you've not necessarily got people in the office, so you need to kind of work harder to get your message across and communicate effectively with your team members. And you might make an assumption that you've communicated a message, but it might have been on a day where other people were at home. So how do you make sure that you've kind of communicated that right across the team? So we're all having to work harder at how we communicate with team members. Culture is a big thing. So everybody wants to work for an organization that has got, I suppose, good culture, a good kind of purpose, and that's sometimes a little bit difficult where people are kind of working remotely. You haven't got that banter in the office, and general kind of chit chat that you might have, and how you can build that culture. So businesses need to kind of work harder at building a good kind of culture. So looking at how you encourage collaboration across the team, and just how you support kind of team members regardless of the location. So that is something that is hugely topical as well. And then just how you kind of prioritize work-life balance. So I think we were all quite good at this during the first lockdown, because I think we'll remember kind of Boris and the scientists kind of standing up and doing their daily briefing, and one of the things that we were all encouraged to do was our daily walk. And I think everybody did make that part of their daily routine. But since we've come out of the pandemic and still carried on with kind of home working, I'm not so sure that a lot of businesses and leaders do encourage people to still do these types of things. So there's sometimes a tendency for people to always be switched on. So is just trying to find that work-life balance. So does it really matter if someone has to take the kids to school at 9 o'clock? If they're logged in by 9:15, are you looking at them, measuring them more on outcomes as opposed to, you know, how long they've kind of been logged in? And likewise, if someone wants to take a 2-hour lunch and go to the gym or go for a run, is there anything kind of wrong with that? So, you know, is that something you want to try and encourage in your kind of business? But hugely important to make sure you've got the right technology for you know, hybrid working to be a success. Otherwise, it's just not going to really kind of take off as such. So, you know, I've talked about some of the tools that you could perhaps use there. So that's certainly some of the things that you need to kind of look at. Some of the don'ts around hybrid working is, you know, just make sure you avoid neglecting remote employees. So again, it's working harder to kind of speak to people who are remote, but yeah, you need to kind of spend that time to do regular kind of check-ins, and, you know, just checking in on people, their well-being, etc., and just making sure that they still feel kind of part of that team. Don't underestimate the importance of kind of team building as well. So I know, again, going back to the pandemic, we all kind of did a lot of kind of quizzes on Zoom and stuff like that. But even, you know, there's things that you can do remotely, obviously things that you can do in person as well. So team building is hugely important. So don't underestimate how, you know, how you can go about that. But certainly something that you need to kind of consider as well. People, you know, said there as well about being part of a culture. They want to kind of feel part of something. So different activities and different events kind of helps foster that, you know, that sense of belonging. So team building does definitely kind of help with that. And, you know, also important just to capture feedback. So don't ignore feedback from team members. You know, try to seek feedback. Try to understand where some of their kind of challenges, you know, the challenges are, and then deal with them in a timely manner. So, you know, so if there are kind of challenges there, let's try and act on that in a timely manner and address the issues that they might be bringing up. And then the last one there is just around kind of micromanagement. So avoid that. You know, we want to try and trust our people, empower them, allow them to kind of manage their workloads, and, as I say, focus more on outcomes and results. And, you know, if you can kind of do that, you will get kind of more out of people. And, you know, and then think about your hybrid kind of setup as well. We've seen quite a lot of them in it around people, you know, feeling the need to have people in the office, say on a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. So they're kind of dictating what days people are in the office. And the reason they're probably picking their days is that, you know, a Monday and a Friday is maybe a day they could work from home, which might suit some people's personal circumstances, but it doesn't suit everybody's circumstance. So don't, you know, try and avoid dictating what days people are in the office. You know, a blanket approach across your business might not work. And if people are to be in the office, what's the purpose for them being in the office? So some of the feedback we've seen from clients and some of the team members within these businesses are that, you know, they're getting told to come in the office on a Wednesday and getting told that's their office day. And then the day they're in the office, they're actually doing Teams calls or Zoom calls. And what they're saying is, what's the purpose of me being in on that day? That's something I could have done remotely. So, you know, don't drag people in the office just for the sake of dragging them in. What's the purpose for being in the office? And that's some of the things that, you know, we can chat about as we go through today's session. So I suppose some of the things that are kind of working from a hybrid working perspective is that, you know, I think gone are the days now where hybrid working is seen as a kind of perk or a benefit. I think a lot of people now see that as a given. You know, it's part of your standard kind of terms and conditions of employment, but it has allowed businesses to kind of, you know, attract more quality people into the business. So, for example, if your competitors are not offering a kind of hybrid working model and you are, you're probably going to be a little bit, you know, ahead of the game to a certain extent and attracting that kind of talent into your business. So that has definitely kind of allowed businesses to attract and retain staff that they might not have been able to do previously. There's also potential savings on office space. So, you know, some companies with, you know, the increase in energy cost and rates, etc., and looking at a kind of hybrid model, have kind of completely transformed how the office kind of looks. So, you know, there's perhaps savings on larger office space because you don't need that bigger space, but there's obviously benefits around just changing the layout. So, you know, layout around allowing more kind of collaboration, more team building opportunities and that type of thing. So that's kind of created some benefits for businesses. And then what we've also seen is kind of leadership is changing for the better, you know. So gone are the days where, businesses are looking at like doing an annual kind of appraisal, because we're having to do more regular check-ins with people. That's kind of creating, different types of leaders. It's kind of creating better workplaces because of that. And we need to equip our leaders to be able to manage teams remotely and have that different approach. So that's definitely kind of benefits. So there's, we're seeing different kind of leadership styles kind of emerge from this as well, which is great to see. And I think people are looking for more regular kind of check-ins. So we're now seeing leaders doing that more proactively as well. And we're, bit of a mixed bag, but feedback does suggest that, from an individual perspective, most people do feel that they're more productive because they've not got the commute, they've not got that kind of travel, so they definitely feel they're more productive. And a lot of businesses do kind of suggest as well that they're more productive. But we have had some businesses kind of say the opposite, that they feel people are more productive when they're in the office. So there's no kind of right or wrong reason on that one, I suppose. And then the sort of things that we see that are not working. So I think with hybrid working, we have seen some clients report some issues around the lack of collaboration, people kind of working in silos, so perhaps not kind of sharing information. So that has an impact on the business. No purpose to kind of being in the office. So again, that brings a kind of challenge. And the biggest ones that we've kind of seen firsthand, in our own team, but also with a number of clients, is just how we kind of develop people. So, when I started my career, I was fortunate that I was in an open plan office. I think there was something like 20 to 25 people in the office. And the way that I learned was actually just observing how people interacted with other people face to face, but also on the telephone, and kind of working remotely, you don't have that kind of same opportunity. So some of the challenges that we've seen is certainly from younger workers coming into the workforce, whether that's kind of graduates, school leavers, etc. They're finding it a little bit more difficult to develop quicker because they've not got that same opportunity in an office five days a week. So that's been one of the biggest challenges, and we're seeing that firsthand with clients. And also just kind of relationships, as a big one. I think a lot of us actually meet our partners at work. We form relationships at work with friends, etc. And that's sometimes quite difficult to kind of do from sitting on a Zoom call or on a Teams call. So having opportunity to kind of forge relationships is sometimes a kind of challenge. So being fully remote completely limits that, I think. Hybrid potential limits it a little bit. So we need to kind of work harder at some of these kind of relationships. But that's some of the things that we've kind of seen over the last wee while, and it's something that's consistently kind of evolving as well. So I think I've probably done enough talking just now. I think quite keen maybe just to kind of move into the kind of breakout areas, Jacqueline, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great, and we can have 10 minutes in the breakout to chat about some of these things. And I think just from what you've said in your slides, I think we can see that as well on the training and developing people. It's much better and more effective in the office, and also that relationship building as well. I think that's just really key for people. And I mean, it's my kind of personal opinion, but I think we're doing a disservice to some people if we're training them and we don't have them in some kind of team environment. That's kind of my own kind of personal view on that, especially if you're early in your career.
Exactly, yeah.
It's really important. So
yeah.
So
as well on that, Jacqueline, actually, sometimes things get taken out of context working remotely as well. So you're trying to give someone feedback and it's perhaps been taken the wrong way. So yeah, I think we are potentially doing people a disservice. That's a very good point.
Yeah. So let's go. We've got 10 minutes. We'll have a move into the breakout. So the kind of question for this is just really what's working and what's not working for you, and then we can come back and just share that, because I think the kind of more we share about this, the better. I haven't spoken to anybody who says we've absolutely nailed this. I think we were talking about that before, Ali. So I think it's important that the more that we share, the more that we learn, the more we can get better at having the most kind of optimum and productive environment for people.
Exactly, yeah. And as I say, we've seen some businesses do it, pretty well, and you try to adopt a similar approach with another business, and it doesn't work so well. So, as you said, I don't think anybody has completely nailed it, which is, I think if they have, then let's find out and see how we can replicate that.
Exactly. So 10 minutes breakout, and then we'll come back and have a bit of a debrief and a wrap up as well. See you back here soon. Welcome back, everyone. We had a good chat in our room. I had Darren Mackay, Mark Allen and Fiona Cameron, and we were just talking about getting people back into the office. What does that look like? The messaging around that. But also just interestingly, Fiona, you were giving us some good chat there just about how you're making the best use of your space at Gillespie McAndrew, and I think that's really interesting. Just about how people are, when they do want to come into the office, they are protective about their space. So they do want to have a desk, and they do want to have their, a place where their belongings are and where their things are and all of those things. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. When they are in, they want to have a nice place and a nice desk and a nice environment to be in. So that's quite interesting, just for that kind of, when people are in the office, what's the space and the environment like. So some good chat around that. But I was also sharing, and we've been talking about this a bit at Henderson Logie as actually part of our business leader group. Is there's some stats, and I'll share them afterwards in the email that goes out. It's just about I think one of the top things that people are looking for from work is that kind of sense of belonging, and what that looks like. But also there's other stats that show that our friendship circles have shrunk over the last sort of 10 years. And I think, and it's actually, that has increased to the detriment during COVID. So people went from having sort of 5 close friends that they could go to if they were having a problem in their life, and that's gone down to kind of 1 or 2. And for certain age groups, the younger age groups, for men, that's reduced even more. So as I say, I do think there is a sort of, we are doing people maybe a bit of a disservice if we can't create a good environment for them to be in the office to some degree. So Ali, what was the sort of chat in your group?
Yeah, so I was in a good group there with Jen, Ruth and Blair, actually, and we were talking around the fact that some businesses have just done like a kind of blanket approach, so if it's not working for maybe 1 or 2 individuals maybe not performing, or productivity issues, the employer then just makes an assumption that it's because of hybrid working, and rather than having that difficult conversation and tackling it one-on-one, they just basically say hybrid working's not working, we're getting you all back in the office. And then how damaging that can be to a business. But the other one that was a common theme was just around the personal development. So the fact that excuse me, we are doing a disservice to younger workers and potentially graduates, that there isn't that same opportunity in an office environment that we all had the benefit from. So that was certainly something that we kind of spoke about in our group.
Yeah, it's interesting just on that training, how much quicker potentially training is if you are in that kind of team environment. David, I was just going to bring you in just to bring in another group. David Smith, is there anything, kind of thoughts from your group?
Yeah, we were quite consistent what we were talking about, Jacqueline. We had Lee from Brody's and Marissa from Family Law Matters, and then Angela from Henderson Logie, and so we waved to each other across the room. But I think that challenge of people as they get more senior can be more efficient working from home and get through their work, but at the same time understanding what your job is, and if your job is the management and leading of people, if you can't get, and I think that's one of the challenges of ensuring that if you're in the office certain days, that the staff that you're in to develop are in the office the same days. And if you get that different, then if the person's at home when you're in the office and you're at home when they're in the office, then you're not achieving that development piece either. So there's just scheduling as well, and trying to make that match, and all the time ensuring that there's enough flexibility that make people want to join the firm and stay with the firm. But there's also the development, because if the individuals don't develop, that's a problem. And it's a problem for your leadership and your management as well, because then it's a less fun job if the people that you're working with can't do their job the way that maybe it was done in the past.
Yeah, it's and I think also we were talking about, and Darren, you made a really good point about, there's always been different personalities in work. And there still are lots of different personalities in work, and people with different preferences, and people that want to work from home, people that no, Darren, you were saying I won't share what your work anniversary was yesterday, but you know, people would want to play dominoes in the kitchen when you started. Then there's other people who didn't want to play dominoes in the kitchen, and that's absolutely fine. But it's trying to figure out, you know, there are people that will have different preferences, but there's also some things that will have to work for the business as well. And what does that look like? And it's not necessarily strict rules, but it's also just, you know, what needs to work right for the business, for training, for development, for all of these good things. So Ali, anything else from your group, or anyone else want to come off mute or put a question in the comment in the chat function, and feel free to do so. Ali, anything else from sort of your group?
That's fine. I was just checking the chat there just to see if
Okay.
there's anything else been asked. No, nothing really kind of specific. I think it was more just on the training element, the difficult kind of conversations kind of side of things. And then, yeah, Blair kind of mentioned he's got kind of set days in the office and set days at home, and just how you know, kind of maximise the use of that time. So pull it back to your point, David, I think there on, there's no point in bringing people into the office if there's not a purpose. And, you know, if you're trying to develop them, you know, that needs to be kind of aligned a little bit. And I suppose when you think about employee engagement, I know some businesses do the kind of Q12 Gallup kind of employee engagement survey, and one of the questions is that there's someone at work cares about my development or cares about me as a person. Like, you know, if you're working remotely and not got that, you know, kind of joined up approach, how would they answer that question? So it does have an impact on engagement and culture as well. So yeah, I think that was a good point that David made.
Yeah, and also, Ali, you were talking a lot about feedback, and you know how sometimes feedback can be misinterpreted when it's on, you know, on screen and things, and then that scheduling. So that David talked about, how do you get people in and actually give them feedback maybe. But I also think, you know, you're talking about surveys, is whether or not people should be doing more temperature checks of staff. You know, if that's, I know there's a housing association I spoke to, it was a few years back, but actually they were quite progressive in how they were gathering feedback all the time, and they were just doing sort of constant temperature checks. I think it was sort of once a month, and then they could see where the variations were over the course of the year. And it was maybe only sort of 4 or 5 questions, but it just gave them a gauge of actually what's going on, where they might be able to nip things in the bud. Early, which I think you were kind of talking about before as well. How do you nip things in the bud before they become something else? And I think that kind of regular feedback maybe, and that's a wee bit of a culture shift, isn't it? It's just like constantly getting feedback from staff. But you know, I think that could potentially help people in this type of hybrid sort of set up, and how we get to a new normal with that maybe.
Yeah, and it's having to work harder at that, as I'm saying, you know, the communication piece. Well, you know, leaders have to work harder at that bit to make sure the message has kind of resonated and they're getting that across. But yeah, taking the feedback on board as well, Jacqueline, as you said. So obtaining that feedback, taking it in the spirit that's intended, and actually then acting on it. So yeah.
Perfect. So are there any kind of final thoughts from you, or, you know, where could, if people want any questions, they ask you afterwards, or, you know, follow you on LinkedIn, all of these good things. So what's kind of final thoughts?
So I suppose kind of final thoughts, you know, there isn't a kind of one solution that will fit everybody. I think, you know, every business is having to kind of do the best they can with this. I think all the points we've touched on there around regular feedback, you know, listening to people's kind of views and adopting a kind of more flexible approach is something that we're all going to have to do in developing our leaders, and then just kind of find what does work right for that business and for the individuals. And then kind of just work through that. If anybody wants to contact me, on the slide deck, my email address and LinkedIn profile is there, so happy to take questions in the chat, or if people want to reach out to me directly just to kind of get some more thoughts on this topic, I'm happy to share that as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Ali. And one final question, you know the drill, we ask all of our speakers this question. So this final wrap-up question from me, but it's always good to know kind of who or what inspires you.
On the spot there. So yeah, you asked me that the other day, so I have to think about that. So there's not one particular individual that kind of inspires me. So you know, I've been pretty fortunate, you know, with some of the companies that I've worked with and through, you know, running the HR booth, that some great clients. So there's kind of lots of good role models in each of these clients. So I've learned a lot from them. So, you know, probably too many to mention, but I suppose what inspires me is more around being able to kind of give something back. So fortunate that we've been able to create some sustainable employment opportunities for people. So that inspires me, and also the fact that we are fortunate to do a lot of good things socially. So you touched on it at the beginning around some of the work we're doing with schools and some other charities. So social impact is something that's really important to me. So that inspires me, that we're able to kind of do a lot of that through the business that we have, and also just being able to support some great businesses across the country. You know, we work with some brilliant clients, and it's, you know, learn a lot from them, and they probably learn a lot from us. But that's kind of what inspires me each day, and be able to kind of create something for our team and for our clients.
Well, that's great. Thanks very much, Ali. So round of applause. Please put your thanks into the comments for Ali. I thought that was just a great session. It's good to just hear everybody's kind of thoughts on what they're doing, reconfiguring offices, space, you know, all this type of things that are on the go at the moment, and what is that looking like. I'm sure this conversation is going to continue over the months and years ahead, and I'm sure there'll be many more surveys and reports out saying how it's going and on all of these things. But I thought that was a really great talk, Ali. Thanks very much for that, and good breakout session as well with some good conversations in there too. So thank you very much for your time. So we have a little bit of a break over summer. So nothing in July. We are potentially working on something for August, but we'll come back to you on that. But we do have a session for September. We've got Kyle Murter, who's been a speaker with us before, and he is going to be talking about the kind of power of storytelling and presentation speaking, and because he's a presentation speaking coach. So that will be in September, but hopefully we might have word of something in August, which we'll be in touch about. I also just want to give a shout out to Andra. Andra's our new colleague in the marketing team, and she's been handling all the tech this morning, so she's done a grand job. So if you could also give Andra a little bit of a round of applause. She's done a really great job this morning, so thanks to Andra for that. Thanks to Ali. Hopefully see you maybe in August, but if not in September. Have a lovely summer, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you later. Thank you.